Female genital mutilation has been described as a harmful traditional practice. Yet globally, 3 million young girls are mutilated each year. But now science has come up with a solution. It is clitoral reconstruction. What that means is putting back the part of the female genitalia that was cut and thrown away, or better still, revealing the part of the female genitalia that was buried under the scar. One person who has taken a bold stance against FGM and now plans to undergo the surgery herself is Miss World Somalia. Zainab, welcome to Bonn.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
I just want to ask, first of all, when did FGM happen to you? Take us back to that moment.
It happened when I was 7 years old. So I was pretty much the age that they usually do it at, 7. From 5 to 10, sometimes they even do it, but I was 7 years old at the time when it happened.
How would you describe what happened? What did you see and how did you feel in that moment?
I knew that it existed. I knew that it was going to happen, but I hoped that it didn't, and I just was waiting for my time. My sister had it done first, and I knew once she was taken to a different city to have her FGM done, it was going to be my turn. But it wasn't on an expected day where I was just being a child, and I was playing outside with my friends. We were playing football, the usual games that we used to play. And then, family members that I knew, that I thought were, I felt safe around them. They're the ones that it was 3 men that came and they picked me up, and I kept on running away because I was like, something's up. I know they're taking me to a place that I know I don't want to be at. And on that specific day, I remember my mom was not there. It seemed like she was saying she was running errands and stuff, but she was nowhere to be seen the whole day. So I remember just being taken into a room where 3 women waited, and they were sat there, they just had all the equipment out, scissors, blades, and just all tools. And then the 3 men they picked me up, dropped me off there, my clothes, everything were taken off. And then the door was locked, and there's nowhere I could go. So, I was screaming, I was crying. And the 3 women, 2 of them, one, was holding my hand, they laid me down, one was holding my hand. One was holding my legs, and then the other one was the one that was performing the FGM. As a child, all I remember is just the pain, and it was so vivid. I just kept screaming, kept crying. Yeah. And then at times I would just go silent. And then I just hear the whispers of the woman telling me you're doing well, you're brave, just those type of words. And I was after that, it was just, I remember that's it, my childhood came to an end, and that was a new life for me now.
Yeah. I mean, 7, you can still very much remember what happened during that
It's the only
time.
day in my life where I don't want it to be the day that I remember, but it's the only day in my life where I remember what I was wearing. Yeah. I remember exactly what I was doing at the time, and I remember everything. It feels like I felt that day, I felt it so deep. I felt I feel the emotions every day. I feel the pain, and yeah, it feels like it just happened yesterday.
Yeah, well, I want you to know that you're safe, because I also come from a culture that does the practice. And in the Gambia, the prevalence rate is over 70%. So you can imagine it's still very high there. And I just want to ask, what would normally happen to other young girls around you? Is it usually just always the same scenario? And what usually becomes of their fate?
The girls in my country, or yes, the girls all around Africa?
The girls in your country, in Somalia.
I feel like it's become so normal. And that's why I use my voice, because I know it's not normal and I know it's not okay. And I just feel I want those young girls to have a voice, and I want them to know that that's not their life. For generations, I always say this, for generations, our mothers, our grandmothers, and all the women before them, they endured this pain in silence, and they always thought that it was normal, it was okay. But it's not, and I want those young girls to know that, your life doesn't have to be like that, you shouldn't be a woman, and that's what it costs you to be a woman,
When you say they go on to live very normal lives, do they end up living fulfilling lives?
No.
They just go on to be normal, nothing happens to people who are survivors or who even undergo this act?
I feel like, and I'm pretty sure a lot of survivors can relate, but once that happens, your life it's never the same.
In the Gambia, we even have deaths as a result of FGM. Not long, we had an infant die. I wonder if it's the same in Somalia as well.
Yes, actually, for Miss World, when I was doing my Beauty with a Purpose project, there was 2 young girls. Their story kind of it stuck with me really bad, and I think it's what really made me raise my voice even more. 2 innocent girls, Fortune and Deqa, and they both passed away from FGM. One just bled to death right after it happened, and one died on the way to the hospital. And how do you how do you go on with your life after that? How?
At what point did the gravity of what happened occur to you, and how did it make you want to change things around you and for those young girls?
I think because it was the only way that I knew I could heal. Growing up, I felt like, okay, especially when I came to the UK, I stayed silent. I never spoke about it. I thought it was an embarrassment, and I've always felt ashamed, and I never felt normal compared to a lot of young girls, especially when I was growing up in the UK, going to school. But then I realized when I started to grow up and I started to talk about it more, I realized if I don't use my voice, there'll be so many more young girls that are going to go through the same thing that I did. They'll never have a voice, and they'll also think the same thing and think it's, you should stay silent, you should be ashamed of it. But there'll be so many more that lay in that same flaw, and they'll pass away. And it's my responsibility, now that I'm safe and now that I have a voice, I should, amplify and use my voice and raise awareness so that there isn't any more young girls that go through the same thing that I did.
It's interesting how in the UK the perception is different, because back home those that are shamed are usually the ones who didn't go through the practice, and those who went through the practice are seen as, the whole women. How did that shift change the way you see womanhood?
I definitely feel like that whole practice is there to take a woman's essence away, just her womanly essence, all gone. But I feel like regardless of how much I grow up and then I start to realize what womanhood is, I feel like I still feel different. I still don't have that confidence like a lot of women do, because I just feel like something has been taken away from me, which is my womanly essence. But I feel like, being different sometimes is okay, because I feel like your story can save others and your voice can also, impact to change.
Now you're planning to do the clitoral reconstruction.
Yes.
What made you want to do this?
I've always wanted to reclaim a part of my life back. I didn't know how, and I didn't know when. And I didn't even know that a clitoral reconstruction surgery even existed, because I just felt like the world doesn't pay attention to it. I felt like the world doesn't care about it. Once this practice happens to you and you become a survivor, that's your life, and you just have to live with it. But once I, discovered that there is a clitoral reconstruction surgery for survivors, it gave me hope, and it made me realize there are so many girls like me. Probably they don't even know that they have this opportunity where they can go and reclaim a part of their life back and some part of their body too. And I was like, this is going to give them so much hope, and I've always wanted to do it, but I feel like I'm mentally, physically preparing, because it brings back so many triggers. I know this time around, I'm going back and I'm laying down on a table, but I'm safe and it's for the right reasons, but it's still a lot. I feel like once I lay down on that table, it will bring back all those memories and all those triggers, and I think that's the hardest part. And I think that's the part that is hard to convince survivors that you can't do it. Just take your time mentally, physically, and then once you're there, just go and get that surgery, and you know, it can give you a part of your life back, because for a lot of survivors, they don't get pleasure from sex and their life is difficult. Going to the toilet to even urinate sometimes is difficult. Like that's normal life things, they become so difficult. Like imagine being a human being and you can no longer use the toilet like a normal human being, like a normal woman. And so once you get that surgery back, like it gives you hope. It gives you, you know, like some sort of satisfaction back from life.
Yeah. And like you said, the term, I'm sure even for our audience, is relatively new, clitoral reconstruction. Why do you share your story so boldly?
I know there are, in my country, there are a lot of young girls, especially ones that are 7 years old, exactly at the age that I was at, and it's going to happen to them. And sometimes I read the news, and not long ago I even read there was a girl from Sierra Leone who passed away, and she was the same age as me. And it made me think, like, I feel guilty if I don't speak, because I feel like, you know, I have this platform and I have this voice. Why can't I speak for those girls? Like, why can't I? And I've been to therapy. I've, you know, tried to heal from it, because it's a very traumatic experience that you can never heal from in life. Like I feel like I always say that it physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally damages you for the rest of your life. And I was referred to a therapist, but it didn't really help me. It triggered me, and I had to go and discover what is going to help me heal. How am I going to, you know, overcome this trigger in my life? And it was when I started using my voice to help those young girls. Yeah. So I realized that the more young girls that I save, you know, then the more healed that I am, and I, you know, become more content and I become more happy.
Yeah. I mean, I know you said you're preparing yourself, but I want us to look at that a bit more. Tell us, how prepared are you with the research, mentally, physically, to undergo this life-defining period?
I do research almost every single day. Like, I'm on my laptop, I'm searching what are the side effects, you know, like exactly the whole procedure. Like, I've read it so many times, but I feel like they say in life, you will never be ready, like, yeah, you know, but I'm slowly getting there. For me, it was like, I think clarity and then acceptance. And I've gone past the clarity, like I'm clear about it. I know what's going to happen. You know, I'm educated on the whole procedure, and now it's just the acceptance stage. Like, I'm just accepting the fact that it's going to happen, and I'm going to be okay with it. And, you know, this time around, there is no damage. Instead, it's, you know, it's going to support me in my life.
Yeah. I mean, there's a high, you know, success rate in the procedure itself, but like it's done in the medical science, every surgical procedure comes with risks attached. And one for this one is that there's no guaranteed of a restored sensation. How does that sit with you?
I always say, and even when I was like, you know, discovering and trying to research about the surgery, I know that that damage is done. And regardless of how many operations you have, what was taken away from you is gone. Like, it can never be returned. Yeah. And that damage can never be, you know, it can never be fixed. But it's just all about seeing, like, you know, how can it support you? Even if it doesn't bring back any sort of like sensation, but can it help you go, like when you go to the toilet, can you urinate properly without, you know, having to cry, without having to feel pain? Like, if just a little bit changes, then I feel like, you know, you're not losing anything, that you're not going to damage yourself anymore. It's just all about seeing what works for you and your body.
Yeah. The whole idea of doing FGM in the first place is to prevent young girls from becoming sexually promiscuous. This is what society tells us. How do you think this particular procedure would sit well with young girls out there who are even fearful of doing something like it?
I think
because when you look around, it's like the whole procedure is overturning. You know, the idea was, first of all, to take away your desire and what would fulfill your sexual desire as a woman. And now the surgery brings that back.
Yes, exactly.
It's like undoing what was done.
It was done. Yes, exactly. But I also feel like you said, they do it because, you know, it's to take that desire away from a young girl. But also, like, you know, in a lot of culture, in a lot of countries, they use religion as an excuse to perpetrate their evil mission, which is, you know, so wrong because, you know, no religion ever commands for that to happen to a young girl. But like you said, it's just a cultural, you know, practice where for them, you know, especially back home in Africa, it's like, okay, well, we know she can stay a virgin and she won't have any, you know, sexual intercourse because she's going to have FGM done. But, you know, they never look at we're in like a generation now where, you know, we're always trying to find how we can fix the problem or how we can fix, you know, what happened to us when we were younger. You know, we're so traumatized when we were younger. Let's go to therapy. You know, we were survivors of this and survivors of FGM. Well, let's make, let's discover a new reconstruction surgery. How can we support these survivors? And I think that's what I really love about this generation.
I mean, you mentioned religion, and the religion itself emphasizes the sanctity of the human body and, you know, forbids any harm or altering of what was fairly created by nature. And so what other explanation do you think society is perpetuating?
I think there is no reason. Even myself, like when I ask, like my, you know, some of my family members, and I, you know, I feel like with this practice, the only way it can actually change and we can move forward is not by even going back and judging our ancestors and judging, you know, our mothers and our grandmothers. I think the root of like any cause in this world is to educate hearts, and I feel like I've done that with my own family. Like I had to educate my mom's heart, and then their eyes open wider, you know. And I feel like once you educate them without judging them, they realize like the harm of this practice, and then, you know, they start to come to their senses and think, oh, you know, we don't have to harm our daughters without, you know, I mean, we can actually honor our traditions without having to harm our daughters. Like nobody needs to get hurt. You don't need to do that to your daughter because you want to honor your, you know, your culture and your tradition.
Yeah. Do you think the medical procedure in some way revolutionizes the activism against FGM?
Definitely, yeah. Because even like in my country, although some young girls are still having to undergo through this like practice, like, and they're okay with it because I feel like a lot of them have hope now. They see that, you know, some people in this world, maybe not everybody, but there are some people in this world, like myself, like you guys, like everybody here in this room, we're trying to make a difference. We're trying to change this practice. We're trying to, you know, find a solution. And so a lot of them have hope. And I know a lot of young girls in my country reach out to me and, you know, they say, you know, you've done so much, like more than we could ever thank you for, like, you know, thank you so much. And I feel like that alone, it gives them hope. The fact that people are even speaking, that like it gives them so much to like look forward to in the future, because I know when I was younger, all I used to think about was like, you know, I remember just like after the procedure, just laying down on that, you know, on that floor, and I used to just like kind of like draw like on the wall with the charcoal because I wasn't able
the FGM procedure.
Yes, because I wasn't able to, you know, you can't go out now and play around or walk properly. So I remember for 2 weeks just laying down there, and I used to think like, I'm just a child. Why does this have to happen to me? Like, what did I do? Why am I in so much pain? And so I just felt like, why is this normal? Like, how come where are the people in this world that are supposed to make you feel safe? Like the adults, especially, I was blaming the adults. I was like, I thought they were supposed to make us safe, like make us feel safe.
And your mom even ran away.
Yes.
During the procedure, she was nowhere to be
Yes,
found.
and I was like, even leaders, I was like, is the president? And I didn't even know who the president was. I was like, is he okay with this? You know, like, who is okay with it? Like, I just felt like there weren't anybody out there that was talking about it. And that's why, to me, it was so normal, and I felt ashamed, and I was like, it's normal, I shouldn't talk about it. You know, and the young girls in my country are supposed to go through it. But when you grow up, you start to realize, you know, the damage.
What's that one thing you would want survivors to understand about this medical procedure of clitoral reconstruction?
I feel like when they hear about the surgery, a lot of them, when they hear about it, they're like, no, like, I'm not going through that. But sometimes I was talking to a doctor, his name's Dr. Arif, and he was telling me that when people come to the clinic, when they come alone, they have doubts and they're scared, they don't know what to think. But when they come as a group, like they feel so, they feel so good, they feel so influenced, they know they're doing it together and they feel so empowered. So I would just like to tell people, and especially my survivors, I would just like to let them know that this surgery is not magic. It's not going to it's not going to undo what was done to you, but it's going to, give you a part of your life back. It may, depending on how severe your FGM was, it can help. And, you have nothing to lose, Take your time preparing mentally, physically. And when the time is right for you, know that the opportunity is there for you and, you can go and explore it.
So beyond the surgery itself, what does healing mean to you?
Healing means getting up, finding your voice, and being, true to yourself and empowering those around you. Sometimes the way I look at it is pain turned into purpose, and I always, live by that. Regardless of how much pain I've lived in my life, I try to use that pain and I try and, find my purpose within that pain, and empower those around me, help those around me, especially, being a voice for the voiceless and, just using my voice to do whatever I can to raise awareness, to educate the world and, for people's voices to be heard.
And in doing that, how do you navigate between culture and women's rights, especially within the boundaries of bodily autonomy?
I feel like women's rights is just humanity. And, I feel like we live in a world where we speak so much of humanity, but sometimes, I ask myself, where is all this humanity we speak of? Because where's the humanity when, young girls are being cut, young girls are, laying down in a dark room, bleeding for days? Like, where is that humanity? Because that humanity should be part of women's rights. And it's just the way I look at it. It's women's rights and humanity. They go hand in hand.
You are not only an icon to Somali girls, but also to women of the world as Miss World Somalia. So what do you think is the role of the global community or international organizations in just continuously taking this strong stance against FGM, but also ensuring equitable access to healthcare services for survivors who feel they need that?
I believe that it's our responsibility to use our voices. I believe that it's our responsibility to educate the world, to raise awareness and talk about it as much as we can. And also giving access to survivors, through medical surgeries. I feel that that's really, really important because it should be provided to them without them having to go through so much research and, and living with the idea that, oh, there's nothing in this world, there's not that many people that care about us as much, not in the medical field, not in the humanitarian world, not people care about us. I want them to know that, FGM is probably one of the most, harmful practices that exists in the world. And when young girls are dying, I think it's our responsibility, for us to talk about it and use our voices. When kids are dying, we talk about it. When injustice happens in this world, we talk about it. And FGM is no different. It's an injustice that happens. It's a violation against human rights. And it happens to young girls, it happens to women. And it's our responsibility. It's the organization's responsibility to talk about it,
And even giving them the resources, because surgical procedure, for example, might be so expensive, right? And for most people, this is a financial burden.
Yes, I was definitely thinking about that, and I think that it should be definitely accessible. We're trying to empower these young girls to, have that hope and have that courage to go and, explore the surgery. But if that's not accessible to them, then what is the point? And that's, I think, where it becomes our responsibility for them to have access to the to the surgery and having that opportunity.
Let's say 10 years on, if a young Somali girl looks back at this interview, what's that one truth about her body and her voice that you would want her to carry with herself throughout the rest of her life?
I want her to know that her body is hers and it's for nobody to take advantage, it's for nobody to violate, and her voice is hers for her to use and for her to build courage, to be brave and to stand up for what's right, because I believe that for change to happen in this world, someone must dare to speak and use their voice. And I want that young girl to look back and tell herself that, you know, being a woman is a blessing and it shouldn't be a burden. And, you know, she didn't choose to be a girl and it shouldn't cost her anything. You know, being a girl shouldn't cost her FGM, and being a girl or a woman shouldn't cost her to be an FGM survivor, you know. So I believe that I think that every young girl should just honestly follow their heart and use their voices. Yeah.
One last, looking at the global beauty standards, how do you hope your story would help redefine what beauty means for women of the world?
Beauty with a purpose. Something that I've lately been living by. So I want people, especially young girls, like even when I was crowned Miss World Somalia, I wanted people to look beyond the beauty and look deeper into my purpose. You know, with me, I don't just carry my beauty, but I also carry my story and I carry a purpose. And that's why even in this interview, I was telling George, I was like, I didn't want to wear my crown or my sash because I wanted the focus to be on this issue. I wanted people to know what my purpose is, to know what my story is, because beauty with a purpose, your purpose should be way more deeper and way more important, as that the beauty inside will always outshine the beauty on the outside. And I believe that once you show the world what your purpose is, which is, you know, where humanity is the heart of it, you know, standing up for what you believe is right is in the middle ground, then I believe that, you know, you will always outshine and your purpose will always, you know, be seen in front of everybody.
Thank you so much and all the best
Thank you.
for this procedure.
Thank you.